Welcome back. You're watching Newslink, and the inability of the Gauteng Education Department to complete the placement of pupils in classes at the start of this academic year has caused more heated moments. Parents have spent hours in snaking queues, complaining about the department's online application system and sometimes coming close to blows with other parents and officials. But what is at the heart of the annual recurring problem in this particular province? Well, senior reporter Aviwe Mtila is following up on that question and others, and joins us this morning for more. Good morning to you, Aviwe Mtila. And it is a debate that we have every single year when it comes to the placement of pupils. If it's not the online systems that are not working, it's the shortage of schools and spaces for placement, something that really just, it seems, Gauteng cannot get right through the years.
Really a headache for both the parents and learners around this time, colleague. As you'd know, each and every single year, as you've painted out, it's the same issue. We have these same queues snaking through in various departments of education and the schools as well, as those parents scramble to put their learners in. Some of them have missed already day one, which started on Tuesday, and now the latest number is that only 571 learners are yet to be placed in those schools. It's a huge number, nearly 300,000, colleague, new entrants of grade 1 and grade 8 in Gauteng alone. But if you get the broader number of how many learners are there in basic education, it's around 2.4 million learners, in fact, around Gauteng, with only 2,300 schools. So you make the maths, as each and every school is supposed to cater for about 1,000 learners. You make the maths in terms of the shortages there. I want to actually get a word now with SATU, that's the union representing the teachers, maybe to try and get an answer, colleague, from Xolani Fakute. Thank you for joining us at ENCA. As to where the problem is, Xolani, we've got this huge number of learners, but it doesn't seem like we've got the adequate number of schools. Where are the challenges? Why are we having the same problem every year?
Thank you very much, Firstly, let me greet you. Let me greet the viewers as well. And also, as a union, perhaps would also like to table our condolences to the family of my friend Chinwala, whom we lost recently. Challenges are there, Aviwe. That is a fact of the matter. In fact, in our view as a union, we do have got the data. The patterns, migration population patterns within the country, they are there, they are available. This is not secret information. However, in terms of the implementation of the planning, because the planning and the policies are there, but now the implementation of those policies and the resourcing of the implementation of those particular policies, that is where we normally find a problem. I mean, we should be sitting ideally, by the way, on a class average of maximum on the upper bracket, at least 35 to 1. So 35 learners to 1 a teacher. But then the ideal number is even less than that, around 30 to 1 at the most. But then now we are seeing that whilst that particular class average might have reduced to a certain extent in the country, we still have got major challenges, especially in terms of the high pressure areas. You would know right now in Gauteng, for instance, we've got a particular challenge within the Tshwane area, whereby we have a number of high pressure schools, but then there does not seem to be adequate response to that. So let us then submit perhaps it's about consequence management, because we are saying as a union that to what extent do we have effective coordination between district circuit offices and the schools? To what extent do the resources allocation, including the post-provisioning norms, actually respond to the needs of a particular school?
I want to talk to that teacher-learner ratio. You mentioned that ideally it should be at about 35 to 1 or 30 to 1. What is it currently, given that the MEC said in no uncertain terms that the schools are overcrowded and will be overcrowded? What is the teacher-learner ratio currently?
Well, the reports that we have with us currently indicate that the current average is around 35.1, which is actually the upper cap for primary schools. But now, this is the average, right? But now the average should also, when we talk about it, factors is that there are extreme cases, because one learner is one family too many for them to have a compromised future because of the class sizes. So now we know the patterns that in the rural provinces, we are still going to see some of those challenges related to the classes. But then, of course, you then have got the high-pressure urban areas. We can tell you now that, for instance, consistently over a decade right now, in the Western Cape, there are instances whereby you'd even be approaching halfway towards the first quarter, the first term term, and yet you still have got hundreds of learners, especially from areas around Khayelitsha and so forth, still not being placed. So what we are saying, therefore, Aviwe, is that we need to have this conversation, and quite honestly, as a country, to what extent do we want to see education as a public good? To what extent do we want to prioritize education? It is unacceptable. Never mind the class sizes, by the way. In some provinces, we are still talking about pit latrines. I can still tell you now that on Wednesday, when it was the first day, the day of school, we still had learning and teaching support material not being delivered in provinces, part of it whereby they even reduced the quantity. The department, without even engaging stakeholders, including parents, by the way, were having LTSM, learning and teaching support material delivery issues. So it tells us that we need to have this conversation, and we need to be very deliberate and very consistent about it, by the way, Aviwe.
Just lastly then, how does Gauteng avoid the same situation of this influx of people next year and these queues in various district departments and schools next year?
Well, Gauteng cannot necessarily avoid the migration issues and the migration patterns because of the economic situation of the country. So that is a reality. But now the question is, let us have those plans, the data. The data, we do have it. But then let us have consequences for non-implementation. That's what we want to emphasize on. I mean, we've got instances of schools, for instance, in Tshwane, whereby learners in grade R were not provided for grade 1 in a very, very same school, which means now you ask yourself that how then do we expect parents to also be involved fully in terms of the context of the education of their children. But what we want to emphasize on our view is that let us have the conversation as a country. Let us be deliberate about it. Education must be public good, and we must protect it as such.
Okay, thank you very much, Xolani Fagaute from the South African Democratic Teachers Union, as the Gauteng province tries to navigate the large numbers coming in for grade 1 and grade 8 placements. Colleague.
Thank you very much, senior reporter Aviwe Mtila there, bringing us the update on the placement of learners in the province as the school year, the academic year, kicked off on Tuesday and Wednesday last week, depending on the school.